We want to thank everyone for coming out to our session today. We're going to be talking about how to maximize coaching and pedagogy through looking at video observation with Danielson Group and Teaching Channel. I am Brian Johnson. I am representing the Danielson Group. I am the Director of Learning, Development, and Design at the Danielson Group, and I'm joined with two of my esteemed colleagues and partners. So I'll pass it off to Don for a quick introduction.
Thanks, Brian. My name is Don Rashino. I'm Managing Director at Teaching Channel. I've been focused for almost the past decade on helping teachers really improve their practice and helping those that support those teachers. And I'm happy to say that 2024 is my 25th year in supporting educators. So I love it and have a big passion for it. I'll hand it off to Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for Teaching Channel. I started teaching in 1991. I've been a school administrator. I've done steady work in teacher preparation, teacher retention. My current focus is on helping educators to share tools and resources, best practices, so we can support our learners, our reason for being. And today, my goal is to offer an educator and administrator contribution or voice to the discussion. Thanks for having us, Brian.
Thank you both. We can move on to some housekeeping. So one of the questions that we always get asked, will we get a recording and will we get the slides? Yes. So folks that are not able to join us, they will be able to engage in the learning today. And feel free to use our chat feature and make sure that you're using the everyone so that we can see as presenters any questions or comments that come up. And again, we really do believe in engagement. So feel free to react, post different reactions as we're going through the webinar as well. And again, we just really want to welcome everybody because we are going to be talking about really the importance of a few things today. First, the importance of observation and what does that observation practice look like? We really want to highlight some of the tools and features within the teaching channel that will help facilitate discourse and discussions around instructional pieces and pedagogy. And then also we want to leave you with some practical resources that you can use tomorrow in your classrooms, or if you're an administrator or a coach, that you can use with your teachers. I'm going to start talking a little bit about the Danielson Group and sort of our vision and how we've shifted over the years, and really thinking about our vision is about envisioning each and every student and teacher, including leaders, experiencing what we think about as an inclusive and an affirming environment so that we can promote dignity, important learning, joyful inquiry, and personal success. We want to bring out the best in teaching and the best in teachers as a hallmark of what the Danielson Group can provide. And of course, many of you all are probably very familiar with the framework for teaching. We have recently, in the last 2 years, updated some of the language. So here our framework is divided into 4 domains, all that help us really think about instruction and our pedagogy around planning and preparation, learning environments, learning experiences, and principled teaching. Underneath those, we have components that help us really break down discrete practices for us to really have great conversations about what does practice look like day to day in our classrooms.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Teaching Channel. Maybe in the chat, you could tell us if you already know Teaching Channel prior to this webinar. I have a feeling you do. We're very proud of the work that we do. And we can just jump to the next slide here. For those who don't know Teaching Channel very well, or maybe you remember us, Teaching Channel is always, okay, so some folks know us, some don't. I'm seeing in the chat. Teaching Channel has been known for well over a decade for our video library. The Teaching Channel library is this vast, robust, content-rich library showing exemplary teacher practice. But more than that now, we're also capturing what is good mentoring and what do good coaching conversations look like? What does a meeting with an instructional leadership team look like? And we're also capturing some leadership conversations. We're also giving you tools to help with self-reflection, to support your PLCs, and to support your coaching, whether that's informal or formal. And even greater and new to Teaching Channel is the fact that we have a very robust catalog of professional development courses, graduate courses, and so on. So we are focused in helping you wherever you are in your career as an educator to be the best you can be and give you the resources you really need to be the best educator you can be. So you can find us at teachingchannel.com or any of the typical social channels. We're going to be sharing specifically, as Brian said, the Teaching Channel platform. Just a quick few bullets about that. We do have, I think if I remember correctly, it's 1,626 exemplar videos. And we offer exclusively some playlists here in the Teaching Channel library that are videos aligned to either the 2013 framework for teaching or also the 2022, as Brian was alluding to. So there are hundreds of videos that are aligned to each domain and subdomain. So we'll get a look at that. You have the opportunity in the platform to create your own library of exemplars and links and lesson plans. You can do calibration, video-based calibration. And as I shared before, self-reflection, collaboration, and PLC support, and then various coaching tools, as well as fantastic data and reporting. And it's my pleasure to share, as you see at the bottom there, we were informed on Friday that the new Teaching Channel platform has just won the Tech and Learning Award of Excellence for Best of 2023 in Ed Tech. So we're super proud of that and excited to be sharing this with you today.
That's excellent news. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So part of our vision and mission at the Danielson Group is how do we help really streamline and focus our efforts on school improvement? And we have three approaches or three spheres of influence that are ways that we think really maximize those. And that is reflective practice, collaborative inquiry, and instructional coaching, which many of these can sometimes be buzzwords where reflective practice is really thinking about how each and every instructional leader, teacher, reflecting on their day-to-day practices and their scope and sequence and the ways in which they're teaching. Collaborative inquiry is about a kind of inquiry-based approach to kind of PLCs. How are we working in a collaborative group to really think about problems of practice and how to increase those skill sets, and to also celebrate when things are going really well. And of course, instructional coaching, as we mentioned from the framework, all those discrete practices, we can hone in on a subset of components or even domains as we think about these practices. And really with Teaching Channel, there's such a great connection of these spheres of influence and how those can be related through video observations and the video clips that are embedded within Teaching Channel to really support a symmetrical way of learning, a generative way of thinking about new ideas, and making sure there's the alignment and that's anchored to a place where people feel that they can go and rewatch resources and read through different ways that we're thinking about, our education space.
Shall we jump in with a poll?
Let's do it.
I'm looking forward to the answers here. This question's asking us to focus on our schools and to identify the extent to which we're leveraging the three spheres of influence in your professional learning. When I saw this chat question and anticipated how I might answer, I was thinking about, if I could have a friend launch that poll, that'd be great. I was thinking about how I would consider how to determine which gets the most focus. And I wondered if it was about how time is protected in our teacher schedules or how we prioritize use of resources as an administrator making decisions. And so if that helps you in answering the question, go for it. Let's see what kind of results we get here as people share where they are leveraging the spheres of influence. I love it. Reflective practice is sometimes called self-reflection. Collaborative inquiry is sometimes thought of as peer-to-peer feedback, and instructional coaching, often considered a little bit more formal, but doesn't have to be. But it's where we really look at something that's more purposefully structured. I love these three spheres, Brian. Thank you for framing them up.
It's so interesting to see where the data is falling. We'll give folks another 30 seconds or so.
While we're looking at those and looking at the results, I wanted to share a lesson that I learned recently from colleagues from the Clarksville, Montgomery County in district in Tennessee. They said that they start people out right away looking at individual reflective practices. And then as they establish the process and get the habits in place, then they begin to really focus on how to establish trust, to get some sharing going with colleagues. And then they move towards a more structured, integrated approach to using their frameworks and videos together throughout their program. I just love the intentionality that the three spheres offer. Oh, we've got results coming.
Yes. So
Want
it
to share
looks
those,
like,
Don?
sure, instructional coaching, here we are, is leading the way at 47%, followed by reflective practice at 30 and collaborative inquiry at 23. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, that's great, and then nice variety. Maybe it's hard to choose only one. I'm not sure. Let's keep the chat going and honor the experience that we have in the group here today, and look at this group discussion question. I love the questions because it does help us think about how to address challenges so we can fix them, improve them. What hurdles are you seeing in establishing reflective practice, collaborative inquiry, or instructional coaching? Go ahead and type into the chat. Make sure you've got that set to everyone so we can share the feedback.
You know, what struck me as folks are chiming in here is 30% for reflective practice. And, you know, that always is something that I think is very challenging, is giving educators the opportunity to reflect on their own practice. And how do we do that? We often hear, you know, our district partners say we are looking for a way to give our teachers more opportunities to reflect on their own practice and observe others. So I think the things we'll be sharing today will really help with that.
Yeah, there seems to be a common trend of capital TIME,
There it
time.
is.
Seems to be the biggest hurdle that people are having in terms of establishing any three of these spheres of influence. Also, I see kind of a trend here around even just the skill set to engage in conversations that will lend themselves to these practices as well. And I think that with having a platform like Teaching Channel, and again, the myriad of resources, it can minimize the amount of, let's say, prep time it would take to establish some of these practices. And, you know, I think we've all worked in and outside of schools, and we definitely understand the time constraints, as there are so many priorities that are important. But we also know things that will move the needle is thinking about how do we kind of start to socialize and prioritize these spheres in terms of how do we continually develop our teachers in our teaching force.
Brian, if I may, one of the things I've also noticed is some folks talking about hesitation from teachers to record their own practice and reflect on it. And, you know, that's one of the great things about the Teaching Channel platform is you do have that vast library of over 1,600 exemplar videos to get you started. So if you are hesitant to record yourself, and it is you know, sort of that psychological hump to get over, if you start with the tremendous resources in the video library, it really gives your teachers agency to, you know, search for a particular strategy. And again, the videos that we have aligned to the framework for teaching are perfect for that. So you can seek out a strategy that you may feel like you need to work on, and you can start to model that yourself. Then you build that confidence and maybe that confident vulnerability to want to record yourself. And no one has to see that. So you'll have the opportunity just to take a look at that yourself.
Absolutely. And I think there's something great about, you know, when we think about reflective practice, it starts with humility. That, you know, as an instructional leader or a principal or AP, we often think that it's very top down on how I give feedback or how I make someone reflect. But I think when we start with ourselves as a starting point, it makes teachers feel less, having less anxiety about when we're talking about our practice and reflecting on it. This is also like a time to celebrate what are the great things, not just the critical pieces, as well. And I think you all have done such a great job of, again, a variety of levels of teaching that it removes some of that personal affect away from when we talk about practice, because sometimes it is our own, and sometimes it's great to see others as well.
Very true.
Don, I think you're going to share some things with us while you get ready. I wanted to share that I have the pleasure of working with the video production team that is actively continuing to grow the video library. So if you are a teacher or an administrator who is thinking about that library, please know it's my pleasure to help find the appropriate content to expand, to address the requests that have come in, and continue to meet our needs in an available starting point library. And then, Brian, as you said, an opportunity to showcase strengths and highlight good teaching that's going on. When we go into the schools and the districts to film there, you can see how wonderful it is for the coordinators of our video production visit to know that they are celebrating good teaching. And that's what it's all about. We are all here to help students learn, and that is the result of good teaching.
Wendy, I think we need the slides back up just for 1 minute.
Sure. Yeah, let's take a look.
And one more. There we go. So we are going to jump in and talk about reflective practice. And as Wendy said, I'm going to share the Teaching Channel platform, give you an introduction to it, and let you see some of the things that can align perfectly here. And as we were just talking about, giving your teachers agency to be able to observe other teachers. I hear this all the time when I talk to our district partners, or even folks in a teacher prep program in higher ed. They'll say, I just can't find the time. And that's been the common theme already. I cannot find the time to observe someone else's practice. And we all know that saying, sometimes the best professional learning we get is from the teacher down the hall. At times, that teacher is actually located in another school a few miles away, or it's someone that you have in your own PLC that you've met through social media or at a conference that you've attended. And being able to see other people's practice is really powerful. And we'll also talk about how you can, reflect on your own as well. So I will look to share my screen here and introduce you to the Teaching Channel platform. And
I'm
if you could
so
just
glad we can show the platform live. I want people to understand how all of this is right at their fingertips.
Thank you, Wendy. So I'll just tell you what you're looking at on the screen here. This is your homepage or dashboard. There's all kinds of activity data, and I can just drag my mouse over it and give you an example of what that looks like. In terms of how many videos, Teaching Channel videos am I watching, and for how long, how many video reflections am I involved in, how many collaborative discussions, and how many observations. So if I'm an individual teacher, user, I'll see my own data. If you're a district administrator, you'll see, data for your entire district. We have our latest videos from Teaching Channel here, updates about different collaborative activities we might be involved in, our ability to create our own personal playlists in addition to the ones aligned to the framework for teaching that we'll look at, and so forth. So, but let's really talk about that Teaching Channel library. So I'm going to mouse over and you'll see that I can navigate to different sections of the Teaching Channel platform. If you remember back a few slides ago, I mentioned that you can create your own organizational library, but we're going to jump into the Teaching Channel library and show you some actual video and then what we can do with that video. So notice, again, I think I actually got that number right, 1,626 videos in the Teaching Channel library and growing. I don't want to give it away, but there are many more on the way here this month and following months. So lots of new content being filmed actively. You can create your own playlists as you see here, but as we're here to talk about the Teaching Channel library, we can dig into, you see aligned playlists to the 2013, but we're going to jump in to the 2022 framework for teaching. So here in domain 1, you'll see it's broken down by the various subdomains. So I know which one I want to see. I'm going to jump right in and demonstrate 1A in applying knowledge of content and pedagogy. If you saw, there were 41 videos aligned to just that domain alone. And you can see as we scroll through our results here, there's a variety of different subject areas that we're covering, different lengths. I'm going to choose a short one, but notice that some are over an hour long. So you see a full length classroom instruction usually comes with interviews with the teacher as well. And the one I'm looking for is reading like a historian. And here it is, just a quick one. So here's one that if you have a teacher that's struggling with this sort of strategy, they can take a look at this video and reflect on this teacher's practice. But just to show you the quality of the video, I'm just going to play it right here. And if Wendy or Brian, if you can give me a thumbs up on hearing the audio, are we good there? You can't hear the audio?
There's a wealth of resources online in order to, for teachers to access primary source documents. World History for Us All has some great primary source documents, internet, modern data history source books. It does take some time to go look for the particular passage you want, and then to make sure that you scaffold it so that ninth graders can access it and understand it.
Mohandas K. Gandhi excerpts from his articles that were published in a newspaper called Young India in July 1925.
So when you're looking for a primary source document, you may want to start off with something a little bit more simple. It's maybe even 2 or 3 sentences, not a lot, very little, but that has a very clear perspective in there so that they can focus on the other skills that I want them to bring to reading the actual document.
It is not non-violent. We merely love those that love us.
Okay, so what is he saying there?
They shouldn't fight back. They should love them whatever they're going against them.
I've also tried differentiating it so that I have for my higher skilled students, I have a more complex version of the document. And for maybe some of my students who struggle a lot more with the reading skills, a more simplified version that has a word bank and has a lot of definitions in it. So you can try 2 different versions of a primary source document in the same class. And I've had a lot of success with that.
Okay, so that gives you a sense that we go into classrooms with multiple cameras, multiple microphones, and capture what were teachers really trying to accomplish with their lesson. What were they trying to overcome? What are they trying to get students to do? And you can see how students are engaging with the content. So this is just one quick example of being able to, go into the teaching channel library and find videos that are aligned to the various domains and subdomains. But now what else can we ask a teacher to do here? What can they do on their own? Notice that you can add this to your favorites. It's just like your own music apps, adding to favorites, adding to playlists. Adding to your activities does the following thing. So what I'm going to show you is in our activity center, what it looks like to take one of these videos and start to reflect on it and practice your reflection. So here is that video. I had moved it to my activity center. And I could share this video with other people, but in this case, notice that it says I'm just reflecting on it. So here's what that same video looks like once we play it and use it for practicing our own reflection. So I can play the video, and as it goes along, here, I'll play it again, but this time I'm going to mute it. And I can start to observe this teacher's practice, and notice this is already one in progress here along the right side. I'm making timestamp comments about this teacher's practice. And I can do that informally and quickly. Or as I start to build my skill set in doing this, and I build my knowledge of the framework for teaching, I can also notice that I'm tagging this appropriately as I'm making timestamp comments about this teacher's practice. So how easy is this to do? I simply click in the box. Notice that the video has paused, and I can make a timestamp comment, and then I can categorize that. I can say, what am I providing context or feedback to this teacher? I can tag the framework, as I said, and so on. I can even attach files and maybe a lesson plan that I think aligns well with this, and then go from there. So I'll pause there and see. I'm sure I'm talking a lot here, and other folks are sharing things in the chat. Wendy, something to add or questions from the group?
We've had some interesting questions come in, and Brian and I can probably share that we are teaming up because we have heard the request for scored videos, and that's a project for us. So I'm glad to hear that there's interest in it and need. I agree with you. Right now, the platform has them categorized so that you can explore the concept and the topic. And then Brian and I are working on the scoring library. Brian,
Right.
what would you add?
Yeah, I would say that, I know that people have such a need to feel like they are probably calibrating correctly, but I think really the power of this tagging is to engage in conversations amongst your staff members so that you're normalizing what could be a certain level in your local school context. I think where we come from as the Danielson Group is those conversations are so much more richer than this is a 3 or this is a 4 or this is a 2. Because I think again, we're trying to celebrate excellence and the conversation that you can have about where did you find something that you'd want all your ELA teachers to take away, or, this is a great resource around cross-curricular activities between social studies and ELA. We want them to watch this together to pull out great strategies. So yes, eventually we will have some kind of maybe scored videos or on a spectrum, but I would urge people to really think about have your teachers use a rubric to say, this is where this practice lies. It's less about being correct and more so about the conversation that you can have within your school, because there will be some flexibility based off grade level and content that I think we really want to empower anyone that's using Teaching Channel or our resources to do.
That's great.
Right.
Thanks for the feedback on that. It helps us know that we're using our time properly to support everybody's needs, and that's what we're about.
I would add one other element here. As easy as you've seen that a teacher can watch someone else's practice, as you're building your confidence, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, and you upload your own videos to the Teaching Channel platform, the same way that you see us reflecting on someone else's practice from the library, you can do this on your own. And this is where it becomes very powerful. I do want to stress for everyone watching that those videos are private. If you've recorded yourself, maybe just using your phone, and you've uploaded it, no one else can see that. That is your own private video. If you don't like it, you can delete it and it's gone for good. But you can also, once you feel comfortable, you can start to share it. And we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So I'll stop my share and we'll continue on.
I wanted to offer a few more comments about reflective practice, because I want to make sure that people know that a good reflective practice is much more than saying, hey, go journal about this, go to the blank page with the blinking cursor and jot some thoughts down. A really intentional reflective practice requires purpose. It's not that open-ended where you might be like, oh, I forgot to wear my glasses that day, I can tell, or I say a lot, or that you're distracted because you walked in front of the overhead projector and the light was on your face. An intentional reflective practice is about providing a structure that says, which domain or which indicator am I focused on? What kind of progress have I made? What does it look like to make progress in that area? How do I use something like the framework for teaching to make sure that I'm effective in reaching the needs of my learners? So the question's not anymore about what happened, it's what was the impact on the learning experience for my students. So you see a couple of items on the screen here, some things to remember about good reflective practice. You want to be aligned, honor yourself as you make progress. It's not from 0 to 100 in one step, but make progress. And then also, I wanted to recommend that people create a portfolio so that as you're making incremental progress, you can go back and realize that, wow, over time, I've I've developed my instructional strategies in some really powerful ways. And so you can create your own portfolio this way. On the right side of the slide that you're looking at is a resource. I'm happy to share it with people since that's what I want to contribute to the conversation. This is a set of question prompts that I collected working with Professor Miriam Sheeran from Northwestern. She uses our platform, and we were thinking about good questions to ask to help as we improve our teaching practice. So there are a lot of resources that you can use to be intentional in being reflective, and so don't wait for it to happen by accident.
And in the chat, we would love to see, and also the chat's already kind of percolating, but just thinking about like a resource like this, how would you use it around improving reflective practice? And I just want to shout out Kathy about using this as a grounding activity of what does it look like, what does it sound like in real classrooms, and kind of going back to that same notion around how do we use this? I think it's really important to think not as much about score, but first we have to say, this is what it does look like or what it doesn't look like. Then you can use, our rubrics and the language of the framework to really establish better practices, because what we always hear is, I hear someone say engaging students in learning, but if you poll 10 people, 10 people have different versions of what that looks like. So I think it's so great to have these videos as we're all watching them together or seeing them together, or as Don showed, that you can share these out and then you can build more context. So there's less ambiguity in your schools or in the classrooms.
I love this. This chat to me is like the adult equivalent of a think, pair, share. And it also makes me think about 4D in the framework, contributing to school, community, and culture. We have an opportunity to offer one another good suggestions, exchange ideas, make recommendations, give examples of things, and elevate our teaching practice. So I love this. Jump in and share some wisdom in the chat with one another. Just what we're here for. All right, we're going to leave reflective practice and move into collaborative inquiry.
Yes. We can move to the next slide. So when we think about collaborative inquiry, one thing I think in terms of dancing group and some of our learnings is, one thing to do is you have to kind of, I'm going to use the word grounding again, but you have to ground yourself in what are some of the personal or stylistic choices that we make and that we have a preference towards. And when we think about collaborative inquiry, there's a way that we have to almost remove the bias from it. And we almost have to think about, we're viewing teaching from kind of a bird's eye level. And some ways that we can do that is thinking about what is the implicit biases that we may have. How were some of the ways that we were brought up in education, the ways that we probably taught, what are the things that we say, you know what, just because I taught it this way does not mean it has to be the only way. Or similarly, like a style preference that, there's a way that you were successful doesn't mean that's how another teacher would be successful. Or conversely, another student would be successful in that same setting. Or, oftentimes we hear this negativity bias that feedback should not be marred with, now here are 15 constructive things to do. Or this propensity to say, it's when we are meeting with teachers, it's about badgering them or being punitive. We really want to think about collaborative inquiry as an opportunity to be like, if I try X, Y could happen. Almost thinking about what are the hypotheses that we could try, or almost in like a scientist of learning. If I try something different, how will that impact our learning? So again, just one way of thinking about, if you haven't started collaborative inquiry or PLCs, and it was interesting from our polling, I do feel like that is one of the more advanced skills that we see in schools. That part of that is thinking about our own kind of personal and professional relevancy and how that might impact how we view classroom observations or we look at student work.
Brian, I'm grateful that you shared this because one of the driving questions I would remind people is when we're in a conversation with a peer, the question's not like, did you like what I did? The question is what I did effective?
Mm-hmm.
And that can help us shift the question so we're not swamped by our own biases.
Yeah, so I'll pass it on to you guys. I think you're going to talk a little bit more about how we can kind of improve or maintain this idea of collaborative inquiry through PLCs in the platform.
Absolutely. And Brian, one of the things that I'm hearing the way you're talking about collaborative inquiry, yeah, it really represents a shift. And what we hear from our district partners that work this way, and they say it's a shift in the culture. And that's something that we have to have a base for, that there's now a culture of really of trust and that we can work together in a safe space. And I think that's what Danielson Group does so well in working with school districts. And I think that's where the Teaching Channel platform can really support that. That's something, again, years of experience working with our district partners and their teachers and instructional coaches. That's what they tell us, that using this platform does shift the culture. So in this example, to demonstrate collaborative inquiry, what I'd like to share is more from the lens. We get a lot of demand for this, and I'm sure this will resonate, is how do we really support new teachers with collaborative inquiry, and how do we use the Teaching Channel platform to do that? And of course, again, we are giving teachers agency to find different things that they may need to work on. But this gives you the opportunity to jump in. I believe there's over 100 videos in the Teaching Channel library that help with classroom management strategies. So I'm going to jump right back in and share my screen.
As we look at this one, really, we do want to think about how we can use an existing library and make selections that prompt the discussions that we need to have in our schools with our colleagues, with our teams.
Perfect. And of course, as we talk about classroom management, that probably gets you thinking about domain 2 and learning environments. And so I'll jump right into 2B. So we are fostering a culture for learning. And again, I have a video picked out that I think we should just take a quick look at here. Give us a second to load it up. And that video is called Tools for Encouraging Independent Learning. It's a fairly new video.
I might even suggest this has a touch of 2D in it as well, supporting positive student behavior, but there's a lot, and often they overlap, or multiple domains and dimensions can be represented in a few moments.
Agreed. Okay, I'll let this one play, and we'll come back and talk about how we can use it.
Say the learning objective with me. I can make a pen to add. Very good. I hope students be independent learners because there's only one of me, and because moving forward throughout their life, it's such an important skill for them to know where to get information and to know how to advocate for themselves when they're not understanding something. All right, now point to where our poster is. It shows all those strategies we've been working on. Can you find our poster? Where is it? Where's our poster?
Adding strategies.
Yeah, addition strategies right up here.
Like unit.
That's one. What's this one?
Another
one? No.
Conversation.
Oh my gosh, you know so many. That is just amazing. We try to make sure that the things we're using, the anchor charts, the posters we're using in class are very visible and referred to often so that students start to internalize that those are places for them to look. It's not something that just gets constructed and then put on the board to look nice. It's supposed to be a living and breathing tool for them. We got a lot of answers here. I want you to turn and tell your partner how you solved this problem. Turn and tell your partner.
I solved it by putting at 10.
All right. I heard some good sharing, and I also heard that maybe we need some ideas of what strategies we could use. Chisholm, can you share a strategy that you used?
So I put a 90.
Wow, really cool, Chisholm. So that was Chisholm's strategy. Can we look up at the addition strategies? Can anybody figure out what strategy was she doing in her head? What was she doing in her head, Giancarlos?
Compensation.
You think she was doing compensation? Let's look at compensation. Compensation is where we add some and then we take it away from the total. I don't think she added any or took away from the total. Maria, what do you think she was using?
I like units.
Add like units. She added the and then she put them to.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we've got an add like units. Did anybody do it a different way? Anybody do a different strategy? Jacob, what strategy did you use?
My strat was kind of like I like units, so
I try to have students leverage partners because that is a great way for them to collaborate. It's a great way for students to practice explaining something to someone else. And it also helps students to not need the teacher every time something's not making sense. Okay, we've got this problem. Let's read it together. 109 plus 35 equals, take a look at our strategies and think, for you, what's a strategy you know would work well to solve this problem? We're not writing anything, we're thinking. We're gonna turn and share with our partners. I'm gonna ask Peanut Butter to share their idea first. And Peanut Butter, you ask Jelly, what do you think after you share? Okay? How would you solve this problem? Turn and share.
okay. Baking pen. So making
All right, so too cute. Just as we were watching these students be encouraged to think independently, they were also working together. So I'm going to talk about this from the lens of, say, someone who is a new teacher induction coach. What can we now do with this video to encourage collaborative inquiry? So as we did before, this can be added to my activities. So I'm going to jump over and show you what it looks like when this is now shared. So tools for encouraging independent learning. Here's that video. I added it to my activities. You'll notice there's some different choices here. We didn't reflect on it, but it has been shared with a couple of teachers. So let's open that up. And again, in this case, I'm sharing it as a new teacher induction coach. And now we can play this video again. We've shared it with some folks. We can edit who we share it with an entire cohort or PLC. And notice that I've said right here, please view this video and think about how you can incorporate these strategies into your classroom practice. And then have a collaborative conversation with your colleagues and use the thought starters to help frame your thinking, and leave at least 3 comments and tag using the framework, and then reply to your peers' comments. So as you can see here, both Rose and Darnell are watching this teacher's practice. So it does not matter if Rose and Darnell are in the same school. They may be part of a new teacher induction PLC that's spread across a vast rural district. And that's one of the beauties of what the Teaching Channel platform can do, is allow you to then collaborate, have an asynchronous conversation about this teacher's practice, and talk about how you might be able to incorporate those strategies on your own. And then also build your knowledge of the framework for teaching by tagging those comments to the particular domain or subdomain. So very powerful, again, to encourage collaborative practice. And back to what we were sort of talking about before, Brian, this is where we find teachers and coaches telling us this is a game changer for them, is that while they know that they're looking at another teacher's practice through the lens of the framework for teaching, this allows them to really build those muscles and start to do it more and more and become more effective at it. And in this case, just imagine the support you can be providing newer teachers and helping them really learn about practice by watching someone else and having this kind of discussion.
Yeah, this is great. I was just reading from the chat box from Courtney. She said, I'm going to share this video with my staff for so many reasons. This is a great snapshot of what discussion should be with students to take ownership of their learning. And Wendy, as you mentioned, this is a great video that shows the interrelated piece around components that we were talking about, establishing a culture for learning, but we can also make a strong case for this is questioning and discussion techniques. Or, you could go into domain one and thinking about this is like coherent instructional ways and practices that the teacher was really trying to make sure that the thinking of the students was really amplified by what do you think she was doing? What strategies from here do we see? Wendy, anything you want to add there?
Sure. I could imagine the questions that you'd want to open with when sharing this video with a colleague. I'm thinking asking for feedback on the types of questions that were asked or the specific use of the strategies. You could be very focused on the pedagogy or the content or both. There's great student interaction feedback that could be generated here. And then thinking about available resources seems huge to me. And I love domain two for two reasons. I love domain two because if you're sharing with somebody with whom you may share students or share a similar student population, sometimes the insights into that feedback can be so precise and helpful because you understand one another's context. At the same time, I like domain two for sharing with people who you don't overlap with at all because they bring really fresh eyes to the questions and to the framework elements. And so I just think this is a great place for really good discussion. And whether it's starting with a video from the library or something that you've uploaded, I think that there are good conversations to be had here that change student learning. And then also I want to circle back to how using video like this helps us combat bias because our feedback is anchored in observable behaviors. And to me, there's just great value in being able to look at something together and saying, do you see that? It's great. I love it.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about, just even again, as we kind of zoom out a little bit of like, okay, so in a PLC, we're all deciding that we want to have some metacognitive strategies all listed on a board. That is something that as a grade team, we're all going to do. I think this was a second grade or third grade lesson. You know, every second grade class, we will try to run a lesson similarly this way, right? And again, having that video is so important to kind of, again, anchor it as well. So we are getting kind of close to our end time. So I kind of want to jump through and talk a little bit about instructional coaching, and then I'm going to send it off to you all, just kind of talk a little bit about, there's a few questions about how do we access some of the newer videos or things that have been aligned for the 2022. But, I think here, as we think about so many ways and kind of externalities of what makes psychological safety and conditions for reflective practice, one that I really thought a lot about was this content knowledge. And again, the way in which Teaching Channel has such a plethora of resources that can help if you're, let's say, an AP and your background's math, but you have to coach ELA, or you may be a more of a math person. You've seen already we have a plethora of content, grade level materials that can help also, not just on the teacher side, but those that are doing coaching really help build our muscles for content.
I would add also here that between having the full lessons, the clips, the interviews, and then annotated videos where you feel like you're sitting with a peer hearing their thoughts, it really helps in making those connections. If you don't have the personal experience to bring to your comments, you can find them in there. Tell us more about instructional coaching skills.
Yeah, and I think right here, and I think I've said it a few times in our just a short amount of time that, again, we have a pathway of collecting evidence, aligning to the framework, and then assigning to practice. So all those are somewhat parallel, but really the most vital piece is the reflection and the dialogue that moves instruction. To me, it's the so what and how that, again, when we have these great videos, we can really think about, okay, I can try this next, or I love that, I'm not quite there yet. And I think just the tagging and everything is a great way of just documenting progress or progress towards a goal. So I'll send it off to you all. Just talk a little bit about where you might find some of those features within the platform again.
Thanks, Brian. So, we've looked at already ways to jump into the vast library and the Framework for Teaching Aligned playlist. We've looked at reflection, we've looked at collaboration, and there definitely was some comments there in the chat about how do we really focus this to use it for coaching. I can tell you quickly, you can use it for informal coaching, again, to provide quick feedback on someone's video. That's easy. You have the option to tag it to the Framework for Teaching. But what I'm going to demonstrate in just one moment is the more formal coaching where you can give time-stamped comments that are rooted in the framework and recommend resources. So this is a more formal observation that also will give us the ability to get some data and reporting about teacher growth. So I'm going to share my screen one last time here. And I won't go searching for anything just for the sake of time. I'm pulling it right up where we're doing an active observation. So again, this is video-based. I will give you the side note that it doesn't have to be video. You can also, do walkthrough observations using this platform and just script as you go through and make timestamp comments and tag it to the framework. But in this case, this teacher, Yvonne, has shared her video with us, and this goes to a single individual, an instructional coach, or maybe even a principal. And notice that there is a dialogue of feedback here from Yvonne and from me, in this case, being her instructional coach. And I'm giving framework-based feedback to her and tagging it, like I'm tagging 2A here. And again, for the sake of time, I'll be quick. We can get a visualization of, how are we tagging across the framework? What are we tagging 1A? I'm sorry, 1B, 2A. If as an instructional coach, you need the framework as a reference, it's all here for you.
Don, I just have to say, this is my favorite part. Is as a coach, to have everything together is so purposeful, to be able to identify the parts of the framework while you're there with the video. Home run.
Yep, it's right there because I would think we would need it as a guide as we go along. And then there's just a few steps that I'll show you. So in addition to providing this feedback, as a coach, I'm now able to provide additional feedback along the framework. So this looks at what we're typically, used to here in terms of, is this teacher proficient and so on. We see the comments that we've added. Again, along all the domains and subdomains. So I'm just going very quickly so you can get a quick look at this. And then we can provide more general feedback. Again, what are things that we think you are doing so well? What are some areas for growth, potential next steps, and maybe some additional feedback? Again, all contained here in the platform. And then finally, some resources that we can recommend. Maybe we have some links to a white paper or to a different lesson plan that we want to share with this teacher in this more formal observation. Notice that we're tracking all the steps here as part of this. And then finally, the last step in the process is getting the teacher to then acknowledge the feedback. And they can download a report. It's PDF. You should be able to see this. There's the PDF right there. And if they need to send that PDF somewhere, store it someplace, they certainly can do that. So as you can imagine, as we're doing this, we're creating a variety of data points, and there are all kinds of data and reporting tools that will show you how that teacher is doing. They can see their own data. How am I growing? What areas was I supposed to be working on, and am I improving over time? So you get that sense of change over time as an individual who's being observed. And then also, if you are at the district level, you can get a sense of how's your entire district doing. We combine all that information to see, are there areas of the framework, maybe a subdomain where we're starting to slide. The group is going down. So that's a great opportunity to say, this is where we need to provide some more professional learning. So that's just a quick look at it. And again, the library we're able to use, we're able to get into reflective practice, looking at our own videos or reflecting on someone else's. And then we're also able to, collaborate in PLCs with collaborative inquiry, and then have informal and formal coaching here as well.
Donna added a note, imagine as a school leader being able to make recommendations that are data-driven about the kinds of PD that you want to bring for your team. That's significant.
Absolutely. We thought here that, you might be new to video, and we thought we could share just some great examples of some success stories. We work with Jackson Public Schools in Mississippi. And as you can see, this is an article from the superintendent, Dr. Eric Green, talking about how they've used video coaching and the exemplar library from Teaching Channel over the last several years to really help turn around their district and improve the quality of instruction. I remember friends from Jackson Public Schools saying, we need to be able to show our teachers what effective instruction looks like. And that's how they use the video library. And then they built the confidence over time to say, okay, let's reflect on our own practice. And they really built their PLCs. So that's a great article. Here's one more. We talked a little bit about new teachers and helping with retention issues and using video coaching. This is a great one from the interim superintendent, Dr. Stephanie Hofer, from the Metropolitan School District of Decatur Township in Indianapolis. This is a spectacular Edutopia article from her and how they are now, I think, in their 7th or 8th year of using the platform and using video. So some great examples for you. And then finally, if you are interested in trying out the Teaching Channel platform, if you think this would be a great fit for you, again, there's a lot here that we've covered in a short amount of time. It could be the video playlists, it could be the reflection and PLCs or the instructional coaching piece. We have a landing page set up for you to indicate that you're interested in learning more. So please just follow that link. I think we're sharing it in the chat as well. But we really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today.
Well, Wendy and Don, just thank you again for walking us through the updates in the platform and ways that it, again, connects to what we believe is highly important in our professional learning systems and what, again, maximizing coaching and thinking about instruction really looks like. And, I'm excited as we continue to build our partnership of tagging our videos and thinking more deeply about components and domains as well. And I hope for our audience and our participants, I hope that we've been able to drop a little seed of knowledge or inquiry around some of the things that you may want to try, either using the Teaching Channel platform or also, also working with Danielson Group as we also offer customized workshops and trainings, again, along the framework. So it's a great combination, kind of a powerhouse, if you will, of resources that we can really help, as so many people talked about. Let us remove the hurdle of time by partnering with us. So again, Wendy, Don, thank you all so much. And for everyone else, all of our back-end folks, thank you as well. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.